Hello, my name is Bree Burns, and this is my video project over Virginia Woolf and trauma for Dr. Tabitha Adkins English doctoral level class. Today I'm going to be talking about Virginia Woolf and sexual trauma and the trauma of sexuality. Briggs sums up Virginia Woolf's thoughts about herself as an author from her Moments of Being collection. It's called A Sketch in the Past, and it says that she concluded that the shock-receiving capacity is what makes me a writer, since a shock was followed by the desire to explain it. So that's how she feels writing is for her, is that everything that she writes is an expression of her trauma and getting it out there. She felt that writing was the utmost importance. She had a lot of issues with herself as a woman because she was barren. She couldn't have children. It was advised for her not to. So for her, writing novels was her way of giving birth. She was very envious of her sister Vanessa, who had children, and so that was her way of giving birth, was writing a new novel. She recalls the circumstances surrounding the initial molestation and abuse by her half-brother Gerald Duckworth. He placed her on a ledge in their hall where you're supposed to stack dishes when you're going into the dining room, and explored her body, and she was about 5 or 6. And she remembers there being a mirror around in there, and what triggered it later was she saw a reflection in the mirror and she was guilty and felt shameful. And so this led her to remember everything about Gerald's abuse. And there's a quote from The Waves that really talks about how Virginia felt through one of the characters named Rhoda. "That is my face," said Rhoda, in the looking glass behind Susan's shoulder. That face is my face, but I will duck behind her to hide it, for I am not here. I have no face. Other people have faces. Susan and Jenny have faces. They are here. Their world is the real world. She felt very disconnected with herself and had a lot of body image issues, including anorexia. She didn't eat, which was, of course, something with anorexia, but she felt that making herself more mature, it was something that she didn't want to do, and so eating was going to make her more womanly and more mature, and that just brought up some sexual issues with her. Her first female lover and crush was her cousin Madge Simmons. She brought about these feelings of distaste about her self-image, and I'm going to read another quote from Moments of Being about Madge. Perhaps once or twice, she looked steadily in the glass when no one was by and saw a face that excited her strangely. Her being began to have a definite shape, a place in the world. And then Virginia says, what was it like? So through Madge, she saw a woman, and being a woman that she could not be. And she actually uses Madge as the muse for the character of Sally Sutton in Mrs. Dalloway, who Clarissa remembers in a very brief encounter as being her first love and somebody that she shared something special with. And so that was very important for her, and even though we didn't know it until learning later and reading Virginia's novel, her diaries about Madge, it's still very important that in Mrs. Dalloway that homosexual attraction was talked about, because that was a very traumatic thing. That's the trauma of sexuality for Virginia. Homosexuality was not ever really accepted in this time, but it was a little more accepted for men, which I think is why Virginia uses Septimus Smith in Mrs. Dalloway to express homosexuality, because it's a male character, not a female. And so that also distances it from her a little bit more, so that the trauma is there, but it's not quite as close to the surface and as painful. And she also writes about her sexual trauma of being a lesbian through the character of Bernard in The Waves. She exhibits the negative way that society feels about them in between the acts through the character of Giles. He is upset about William Dodge, and he's leaving the party, and he's headed towards the barn, and he starts kicking a flinty yellow stone. The color yellow in that instance is something that Virginia equates with romanticism and with lesbianism, because she actually, in one of her diaries, equates Vita with bringing up passions in her and equates them with an old yellow wine. And so in between the acts, when the yellow stone is being kicked, and it's right before he finds the snake and the toad, he's expressing the feelings of how society views homosexuality, but it's also, even though I don't remember quite right this second if Virginia and Vita were together at this point or not, it also expresses how Virginia kind of feels about being a lesbian. It's not something that society is going to approve of, and so it's something that has to be violent. She writes so many things throughout all of her novels about, it expresses her trauma, especially in everything where there's mirrors, and when there is an issue between characters like the man and the woman character, where the female doesn't want to be in that relationship anymore. She had a lot of issues with Leonard Woolf, her husband, at the beginning of their relationship, which led to her breakdown, one of her first breakdowns, because of the sexual part of it. So this concludes my lecture today. I hope you have enjoyed it, and thank you very much.